Well, it's a historical battle of fierce political rivalry as Ghana goes to the polls to vote in the presidential election. President Nana Akufo-Addo, who's 76, is up against his predecessor, 62-year-old John Mahama, in an election that is arguably the biggest in Africa at the moment. Jerry John Rawlings, John Kufuor, John Atta Mills, John Mahama. It's been some sort of political baptism in Ghana in the past years. Will incumbent Akufo-Addo continue his reign or bow out for his foremost political rival, Mahama? We'll be here to give you the result. Welcome to VSA. I'm Sulaiman Alede. Ghana 63 is West Africa's second largest economy, and that makes this election even more important. After years of military rule amid democratic governments, the political landscape of the country has been stable for more than 2 decades now. The current polls is Ghana's 8th consecutive election since 1992. While 12 candidates and parties have thrown their hearts into the ring, the election is primarily between candidates of the ruling New Patriotic Party, NPP, and the opposition National Democratic Congress, NDC. A total of 17 million voters registered for the election. The number increased by 2 million voters from the 2016 election. The polling units in the country have also increased by 5,000 from 28,000 to 33,000. Joining me today, two extraordinary gentlemen whose interest is about the continent. And Tony Goldman, former African editor of Financial Times and the editor of the Pan-African Newswire, Abayomi Azikiwe. Good to have both of you join me on Village Square Africa.
Thank you.
So quickly, let me start with Anthony in the UK. Considering how the Ghanaian economy is to West Africa and even Africa, what do you expect from that country at this point in time as they're voting?
Well, I was in Accra a couple of weeks ago. It's a different kind of election in Ghana. Obviously, the impact of the coronavirus health pandemic has impacted how parties have campaigned. There haven't been the big rallies that you would normally see. It's been quite a sobering year for Ghana's economy. The issue of management of the crisis has actually worked fairly well for the president. Ghana's figures for COVID have been fairly good compared to other countries. But I think on the whole, it has been a fairly low-key affair. Perhaps some people might say having a fairly low-key election isn't a bad thing, given how lively things have been in other parts of the world over the last few months with contested elections and all of that kind of thing. So I think that these are two well-known political parties. These are two well-known candidates. They're standing against each other this time. They stood against each other 4 years ago and 4 years before that, and even 4 years before that. Mahama was on the bill with the late Professor Mills against Nana Akufo-Addo. So this is not an unfamiliar choice to Ghana, and I think that the issue will be who is able to get their people out. Turnout, I suspect, will be one of the more interesting things to look at afterwards.
Let me bring in Abayomi. It looks more like a two-horse race, going by what Anthony has said. And these two gentlemen are no strangers to elections in the country. Neither are they to, well, the politics of the country, Ghana. What do you see, Abayomi, coming out of this election?
Well, I think it's very significant because Africa now is facing enormous challenges related to the COVID-19 pandemic, where the countries that have been facing lockdowns. It's also impacted the foreign exchange of Ghana and numerous other countries. Ghana is a major producer of agricultural products, cocoa being the major one. Also, they mine and export gold. They're also very much dependent on tourism. all of these sectors have been negatively impacted by the worldwide economic downturn. So there's a debate going on right now between the National Democratic Congress and the National Patriot Party, the NPP. They represent two different political traditions, historical political traditions in Ghana. They are debating on which way forward. But irrespective of who wins the elections, they're going to be faced with serious problems going towards 2021.
You say this is happening at a time, or what the world will call the year of the pandemic. And Tony, earlier on, I spoke to some observers in Ghana before both of you came on. There seemed to be a little bit of a reduction in the turnout as compared to other elections, even though the registered voters has got an increase. Do you think this just might be what some others will be experiencing as the voting continues in Ghana at the moment?
Yeah, I'm sure it's a part of that process, but also I think the element that I think you want in a democratic election, the thing that inspires voters, that the ingredient of hope is difficult to conjure up when you have two such familiar candidates, particularly when both of them have been slinging quite a lot of mud at one another on issues like governance, integrity, and corruption. And as a result, I think that it has tended to switch off maybe some of their supporters. But there is a lot at stake, not just 4 more years at the presidency, but also parliamentary elections. And I think that when you dig down into it, actually, I think there's been quite a lot of enthusiasm in some constituencies, and it may be that actually we may see something interesting in Ghana where maybe something different might happen in parliament compared to the presidency, and that might set up a different kind of arrangement than they've had since the restoration of civilian rule in 1992.
So Abayemi, in such an election, since both of them have had a taste of governance, it then means that the voters will be swayed by, what they've done so far. Now, for someone like John Mahama, perhaps what he did while he was in office, and perhaps what he hopes to do will actually stand him out against his rival. What are those things you have noticed that would set both candidates apart to give the voter his choice of where to cast his ballot?
Yes, it takes me back to 4 years ago when MAHAMA was defeated by President Nana Akufo-Addo. There were problems, economic problems at the time. This was around 2015, 2016, when you had the first major drop in commodity prices inside the country, decline in oil prices, which Ghana now is an emerging oil-producing state, and also agricultural products. Prices were down, and this impacted the national economy. There was also bureaucratic bottlenecks, which prevented a lot of service delivery. There were also strikes by civil servants, teachers, physicians, claiming that they were not being paid on a regular basis. So this is what created the atmosphere for the NPP to come to power in 2016. But 4 years later, similar economic problems exist in Ghana, and it's just not confined to Ghana. Countries across the continent now are facing mounting national debt. At least two that we know about are seeking to refinance or reschedule debt payments. Zambia is one, Mozambique is another. So this is a continental problem that's part and parcel of a global problem that is largely the result of the failure of the major Western countries in particular to harness the spread of COVID-19. So as African countries, although they've done a sterling job in mitigating the spread of COVID-19, are still impacted by things that have developed, for example, in the Western capitalist states.
You know, Anthony, I'm excited that both of you are here because both of you are experts in African politics and matters. And looking at what Abayomi has said, he says that a couple of other things, you know, might creep in. But a case in point, I want us to remain on the issue of economy and some other things that this might mean for Ghanaians. Recall then, Anthony, that Ghanaians had protested about you know, losses of, you know, their jobs and economy to the extent that it also affected its other neighbors like Nigeria. What are those things you have seen in the manifestos leading up to this election that Ghanaians are keen about at the moment?
Well, there have been job losses, and it has been a difficult year, and it has been difficult to access capital markets and to bring funds in for infrastructure, for education, you know, for some of the promises that have been made in the past. Both sides have been pushing policies that they say will generate jobs, that will improve standard of living, will protect the most vulnerable. I think it comes down essentially to a question of trust and a question of whether what people say in campaign is what they're able to deliver in public administration. And I think the issue of the rule of law, I think, which is the kind of the baseline, if you like, for attracting investment from overseas and trying to tap in perhaps to some of the cheap money that's likely to be flowing around international markets in the wake of the health pandemic over the next few years, is something that I think will come down to the capacity of whoever emerges from the election to be able to persuade the market, to persuade investors that actually what they're buying into is what they'll get. And I think one of the Ghana has had a very good record on elections since 1992, and if you look at what's happened in Africa or in West Africa this year, with controversial elections in Ivory Coast boycotted by the opposition, a third term in Guinea for the president, there is something quite reassuring about these two sides slugging it out one more time. But make no mistake, I think some of the in the run up to the election, the resignation of a prosecutor general in connection with corruption, alleged corruption scandal or governance issues. These are kind of warning signs flashing, if you like, that even a good election won't necessarily be able to solve. I think this is a good opportunity for Ghana to showcase itself as a beacon of stability in an otherwise troubled region. But I think the business of consolidating democracy begins the day after election day, and actually beginning to show that you can make good some of those promises to the voters. People have heard it before from both of these gentlemen many times, and I think there may be a kind of a credibility issue or a confidence issue that they will have to overcome and prove that they're worthy of that as they go into government in the next 4 years.
Well, call it the year of the pandemic, but it is an election that pretty much will bring up a whole lot of issues in that country. Gentlemen, we'll take a moment, we'll come back, and when we come back, we'll look at some of those key talking points by both candidates. Stay with us. Welcome back. Don't forget, we're talking about the Ghana's presidential election. Nana Akufo-Addo's leadership has also divided opinions in that country. The scorecard of his campaign promises reads below average. His campaign promises were abolishing fees in high schools, which he has done, although with its criticisms, establishment of a hospital in each district, which he has not kept to, construction of a factory in each district, a promise he hasn't completely kept. Of course, cutting corporate taxes partly kept our promise. And again, as the gentlemen have highlighted, fight against corruption, which is another controversial one, and holding an election for local government representatives, he's stalled on that. They are still hanging on a couple of other things, but we'll go back to the guest joining us today to look at these issues. As Abayomi Azikiwe and of course and Tony Goldman joining us to look at these issues. Now, gentlemen, good to have you back. It's our home stretch now, looking at elections in Ghana at the moment. For, you know, an African nation that has also had its own share of the pandemic, COVID-19. John Mahama, the former president, did say he was going to build well over 20 hospitals. Abayomi, you know, in Africa, we've seen promises made by candidates. For some, they still think that promises are meant to be broken when it comes to African politics. What do you have to say about this?
Yeah, this happens in particularly in electoral politics. It's not just limited to Africa. We've seen it internationally. I'm here in the United States, and we just went through a major election. There have been a lot of promises made, particularly by the incoming Biden administration. It remains to be seen if these promises can be fulfilled. But in Ghana itself, I think they had a boost several years ago through the growth in the oil sector and also the growth in trade with Western countries, the United States in particular. But this has taken a reversal even before the pandemic. As I mentioned earlier, with the decline in commodity prices, oil prices, this places brakes on the development goals of Ghana and other countries in the economic community of West African states, the ECOWAS region. So it depends in large part on the overall growth or negative growth within the world economy as a whole. We know that the United States is suffering immensely right now, and it's very little assistance even the incoming Biden administration can provide to states such as Ghana. So Ghana is going to have to be self-reliant in regard to its economic program moving forward.
And Tony, you know, a little cheeky fact here. Mahama was vice president when U.S. President-elect Joe Biden was vice president. Some Ghanaians are saying that, well, this just might be fate for their candidate. I don't know how this works in politics, especially for Africans.
No, I think Ghana has always, I think, worked very hard to try and find ways through so that it has established relations. Actually, we think one of the things that this government, that Nana Akufo-Addo has done since being in office that has been quite effective is playing up Ghana's role as diaspora identity, the year of the homecoming. You know, it attracted a lot of people from the United States to come and to visit at another level. He also, I think, spoke to a particular gallery when he talked about the need to move away from aid and that kind of dependency relationship, and to reach out and develop proper trading channels and a fair relationship with Ghana's bigger partners. Also, he's fluent in French, so able to speak, to people in neighboring states as well as to France, and so has a different kind of position, a different kind of lobbying capacity in Europe as well. So I think it's the challenge, if you like, I think is how do you kind of manage tactics and strategy? So when you only have a 4-year election cycle and you have as established and as bitter a rivalry as there is between the two parties in Ghana, how do you go about fixing some of the longer term issues that the country has, things that both sides know need fixing, like the infrastructure for power, for education and so on, unless both sides are going to buy into it? Because I think John Mahama has said during this campaign, and I think it speaks of the weakness of the political system in Ghana, if you like, which is so focused on this 4-year cycle of elections. He said, well, look, some of the things that we were doing, you're only now beginning to see them in Ghana. You're only now beginning to see the impact of some of the roads or some of the infrastructure investments that we were making. They take a long time to work their way through the system.
You know, Antonio, let me jump in here because you just raised quite a good perspective, talking about the 4-year circle life in in administration in a democracy, especially in Africa. Does this speak to why some presidents, for instance, former President Goodluck Jonathan of Nigeria, he advocated for a 6-year, single-term rule, and now we're getting to see another from George Weah, the president of Liberia, is trying to see if they can actually have an extension to get it on a single term. I want Anthony to go with this, but before we bring the same question to Dr. Abayomi very quickly here, gentlemen.
It's a good question. I sometimes suspect it would be easier to take it seriously if it came from people who weren't already in office trying to extend their terms in office, and how that exposes them to criticism that this is about self-preservation rather than national interest. But certainly, I think you saw it in the US, where there's this relentless process of campaign politics, from the day of inauguration till the day of elections. It does obscure the real business of actual public administration. Elections are increasingly expensive and increasingly polarized. I think social media, has been a feature of this election in Ghana, as it is in a lot of other places. And I think that when the smartest people, when the biggest money is going into election campaigns, and they come around as frequently as they do, I think it does create challenges for how to create consensus on bringing about those kind of long-term changes that are the baseline for all of the prospects for sustainable growth and development. So I think that there very well may be a case, I think, for a different kind of approach. But I think when it's adopted or championed by those who are already in power rather than those seeking it, I think perhaps it loses some of its currency.
So, Dr. Abayomi, I don't know if you got me there before, because we lost it for a bit there. We're talking about extension, or tenure extension, which is more like the fad now in African politics.
Yes, and we saw the problems it caused in Guinea-Conakry in the recent elections with Alpha Condé running for another term. The same thing in Cote d'Ivoire with Ouattara. Yes, it created a lot of social problems, mass demonstrations, and even violence inside the country. So I don't see that happening in Ghana at this point. Most of the elections that have taken place since the return to multi-party democracy in 1992, as you mentioned, have gone off fairly smoothly. And judging from the correspondence over your network, News Central, what they've been reporting is a very calm, very peaceful atmosphere that exists in the country. So that is a very positive development. It also sets the tone for other countries throughout the continent as well.
So, gentlemen, I think this is where I'd like to say many thanks for being such a nice company. It's been an interesting, moment with both of you. Dr. Abayomi Azikiwe from speaking with us from the United States, and Tony Goldman speaking to us from the UK. Hopefully, the best man will win the election, and Ghana's progress will be the watchword as citizens vote. Thank you for joining us, and the program returns tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye.